Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years.
I'm going to put some protective tape along the edges of the bumper and the fender so that while we're handling the bumper, we can avoid scratching up the paint. Just repeat this for the other side. So to take the front bumper off, you don't have to have the car in the air, but it does make it easier for us to show you what we're doing. You're going to remove this 10mm bolt here. There's one here. Follow them right across the front. One here, here, another one here, and this one over here. Use a 10mm socket. They do have a spot in them for a Phillips head screwdriver, but the socket makes it a little bit easier. To remove these lower splash shields, I'm going to remove the other 10mm bolts. Over here. And remove these bolts here. Somebody probably replaced these with aftermarket ones. They're most likely going to be 10mm like the other ones, but on this car, they're 1/4 inch. On each side of the bumper is a small plastic clip. You use a flat-bladed screwdriver to turn it 90 degrees to unlock it. We can use a plastic prying tool like the ones you can get from 1aauto.com to pry it out. Put that aside so we don't lose it. And that's what's holding in the bumper to this fender liner. Once you remove this pin, you're gonna move up here and you can pull down the fender liner. There's a hidden fastener up here. It's 10mm. Also has a Phillips head screw head to it, but I'm gonna use the 10mm socket because it's easier. I'll remove it. Repeat this for the other side. Bolt might be a little rusty underneath. I'm going to spray some rust penetrant. Take our 10mm socket and remove it. This is one single bolt that is holding on this entire metal support that's on the top of the bumper. On both sides of this bumper, there's a screw with sort of a rubber cap around it and a bunch of these push pins. This larger one here attaches to the headlamp assembly. It's actually broken on our vehicle, so it needs to be pushed out so the bumper can come apart. I'm going to leave this one in here because it's already broken. We're going to remove this, and then the other side I will push this pin out. I'm using a Phillips head screwdriver. Feels pretty rusty. I'm going to use some rust penetrant in there. See how the top of this bumper is now loose? So it's come off of this metal bracket. And it should be pinned into here on the headlight, but this part of the headlight is actually broken off. Need to push this pin out. It's gonna be pretty difficult where it's like a flush mounted pin. So I'm gonna take a plastic prying tool that you can get from 1aauto.com. I'm gonna push it in here and try to pry up on that. Might work, might not work. Might just take a very small flat-headed screwdriver, go up in here, and that actually did the trick. So that will be loose from the headlight assembly. Now I need to remove this screw. With all the fasteners removed, the bumper should unclip from the body. You have to give it a bit of a pull. It's going to pull off of this bracket. It snaps into here. It's going to actually sit on top of those metal brackets on the top of the bumper, so that's okay. And do the same on this side. Just kind of reach your hands underneath, get a firm tug. With it loose, you can lift the whole bumper off. Drain the coolant into an appropriate container. Open up the drain that's here. Once that's open, you can actually open the radiator cap. It should come out a lot faster. Remove the hood latch, remove the 3 10mm bolts that are holding it on. Pull this out. Kind of slide it out between the sheet metal. And just move the horn out of the way. Now I've got some more slack. Take a flat bladed screwdriver and just pop this cable out of where it's sitting. Now with it out, I can slide the little weighted end just out of there. The hood latch is removed. With the hood latch out of the way, I can get to this bolt because this entire upper radiator support is going to have to come out. That can just be loose. I'll put this bolt right back in the original spot so it doesn't go missing. The horns are bolted to the radiator support that we need to remove. You can either unbolt them or unplug them and just take them with the radiator support. So we're going to unplug them by just squeezing in the lock tab and pulling it out. Same thing for the other side. Use just a flat bladed screwdriver, just help push the lock in. And just pry them out. Okay. Next up, we want to remove this intake tube. It's 10mm bolts that are holding it to the upper radiator support. Lift out like that, put that aside. I'm going to put our bolts back in there so I know where they go at the end. I'm going to remove these 2 bolts. There's another 2 on this other side, just like it. 10mm. We'll lift this upper radiator support off of these rubber mounts for the radiator. Slide it out from behind these air guides. And I've got the horns are going to come with it. You could do this from up above, but it's easier to reach these from underneath. These are the transmission cooler lines that are going into the radiator. I need to remove these clamps and then pull these lines off of the radiator. And then I'm going to put some glove fingertips over them so they don't leak transmission fluid everywhere. Make sure you have a drain pan underneath to catch any fluid that leaks out. Take some more glove fingertips, put them over these lines, because when we go to take the radiator out, you swing it around, try not to get fluid everywhere. I'm going to remove this upper radiator hose. The O2 sensor is clipped to it, so I'm going to unclip it here and pull this apart. It just pops out. Just squeeze these tabs, pull it apart. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click it over here so it doesn't get lost. Pull that out of the way. And use our pliers. Clamp these open. They do have little locks, but they're kind of tricky to get them locked. So all you have to do is move them out to the middle. Same thing for this one. That one actually locked for me. See, it actually slid over the little tab there. I'm gonna work this off the plastic of the radiator. Work it off of the metal of the head. Kind of get sealed on there with heat. Use a pick, try to break the seal. Put this hose aside because we'll reuse it. One thing that's important to mention when you're dealing with a radiator in this car, AC condenser is bolted to it. AC condenser has hard lines that run to your AC system and it's filled with Freon. Now you don't want to disturb this and puncture it or crack these lines and take them apart, because you'll lose all your Freon and then your AC is not going to work. And then you'll need to go to a professional shop and have it recharged or repaired, because it's not something that the average person can do in their driveway. So we're going to be really careful dealing with this AC condenser. I'm going to attempt to remove the fans right now to show you how to do that. I think with this upper radiator hose out of the way, it's pretty easy to do. Use a flat-bladed screwdriver to push the locks in. Put this connector out here, same way. You can use a clip prying tool to pry these out of the fan. This harness aside. The two fans are connected to the radiator with these push-in clips on the top. There's 3 sets of them, and then it just slides over some pins at the bottom. So we're gonna push these in, push it out. Same thing over here. Push them in, push it out, lift it up, and off the pins. It's a little tricky because it actually loops around the bottom of the lower radiator hose. Undo the lower radiator hose. I'm going to use a pick to break the seal. I'm gonna remove this overflow tube, the hose. You can use the pick to break the seal. And just put that aside. Now we need to separate the radiator from the AC condenser. Use some rust penetrant. Get these top bolts. There's 2 bottom bolts. A 10mm. Remove these, put them aside. And what's going to happen, this condenser is just going to sit there. Now the radiator is completely loose and disconnected. I left the lower hose on here, so I'm going to pick it up out of the bottom grommets. Make sure you don't get caught under the AC condenser. Pull it straight up and out of the engine bay. And remove this lower radiator hose clamp. Now it's really easy to get to. Put the hose aside so I can reuse it. There are some grommets on the bottom of the radiator. I'm going to just slide them off so we can reuse them. There are 2 grommets on the top. Also reuse those. And the radiator cap we're going to reuse. Here's our original radiator from our vehicle. And here's our brand new one from onlyauto.com. See, it's similar in design. Got your automatic transmission cooling lines. Pretty corroded. Very corroded over here. You can actually see where the plastic end tank and the aluminum part of the radiator is crimped along the edge here. It looks like it's begun to separate and actually leak. You can see some dried coolant and a little bit of dampness from what looks like coolant that's come out. So this radiator looks like it was on its way out. I'm just going to flip it over and compare it to the other one. Has the same mounting tabs as the original for the AC condenser, and the same pins top and bottom that those grommets are going to go onto. You can actually put them on right now. So these are our original grommets you'll have to reuse. These will go on the top. These 2 will go on the bottom. Back over. We're going to reuse the radiator cap. This should fit great in our vehicle and help keep it cool. Radiator also ships with these protective caps. They're on the end of these hoses so that debris doesn't get down in them. I'm going to leave them on until we're all the way installed and ready to put these lines back on. That way nothing gets in there. We'll reinstall our lower radiator hose while it's on the bench. It's a little easier to deal with. And it was roughly in that position. Put our hose clamp back down. I'll slide our new radiator down. It's going to go into the radiator support. The grommets on the bottom of the radiator, one is going to sit here and the other one is going to sit in here. Try to be very careful of our AC condenser. Just going to put that there because it just kind of helps hold the radiator in place. I catch these top ones, so this actually is a little hook here. Go up and they will hook right there. Thread the bolts back into them. Capture our bottom bolts. Reinstall the lower radiator hose. Push the clamp back over. Reinstall the overflow tank hose. Bottom of the cooling fan shroud, there are 2 tabs. They're going to match up with the 2 tabs down here in the bottom of the radiator. We also need to slide this hook. It's going to go on the other side of the lower radiator hose. It's pretty soft, so we can slide it in there. Might have to squish the hose a little bit. You'll feel them slide right over it, and they should line up with these upper push tabs. Once it's lined up, you just push them in, they'll lock into place. We're going to reinstall the electrical harness. These push clips will go right back in where they came out. Put this in over here. Plug this back into here. Let's go back into here. This will plug into here. So this original radiator hose is actually marked kind of where it was sitting. So put it back on that side, and it lines up with the radiator on this side. You can also see the mark where our wire was sitting. So this one I actually managed to lock, so I can just slide it over without squeezing it together. It's gonna sit in the original spot, so I can unlock it. It's snapping my fingers. Line it back up where it was. The upper radiator hose is installed. I'm gonna put our O2 sensor wire back into place. Spin that back. This again, you squeeze it. It pulls apart. Goes underneath the hose. Reinstall the upper radiator support. It's going to go down over. Well, you have to put in, slide it in these little air guides. These little slots. They're kind of flexible, you can move them around. You also have to get it over these grommets. So that's in place. You can actually temporarily thread this in, it'll help hold it. Reinstall the 4 bolts, 2 on each side. Radiator support is reinstalled. Just gonna tighten up this one. I'll plug the horns back in. I'll reinstall the hood latch. Take our hood cable. It was behind here. The little lead weight part looped into here. Then we need to push the plastic part up into the bracket, just like that. It's pushed up. Let's spin this over, and then go behind that, down and over, and get it lined up. These 2 upper bolts here. It does have a little bit of adjustment, but you can kind of see where the original, there's an outline where the original bolt heads were. For now, I'm going to line it up with those and hope that it stays the same. If not, I'll have to come back and adjust it. So you can move it around. So just do your best to line it up with where the marks were from the original bolts. Got our drain pan in place because we're going to lose some transmission fluid here. We want to catch it. I'm going to take off these rubber caps that the Radiator shipped with. We don't need them anymore. I'm going to grab this line here. This one goes here. Move our zip tie. Install the hose clamp. Wipe up that oil. Pull this line down. Cut this zip tie off. I believe I had 2 of these. So this one was like real leaky. Yeah. This one off. Install our clamp. Reinstall the air intake tube. Just slides over the air box. Lines back up on the radiator support. Install and tighten the 10mm bolts. Reinstall the bumper. We'll hang it on the top brackets. This is why we put tape. So as we're moving around, we don't scratch anything. This can be pushed back into the bracket now. Same for the other side. Install the push clips, go into the headlamp. And reinstall these little rubber bumpers that have bolts in them, Phillips head screw. Reinstall the bolt to the top of the bumper. And reinstall these plastic locks. They went in this way and then turned. Install the self-tapping screw that's up here behind the fender liner. Reinstall the locking clip. Install the self-tapping screw that's behind the fender liner. Reinstall the splash shields. Slide up into the bumper. Install the other half. This piece went up into here. Just reinstall whatever hardware that's original to the vehicle that you took out here. Peel off all the tape we're using to protect the bodywork. If you need to adjust the alignment of your hood latch, you can loosen the 3 bolts, move the hood latch to where you need it to be, and close the hood. You can check the alignment of this panel gap between the hood and the fender, and the same on the other side. along the edge of the bumper. Our car looks good, so I'm going to leave it alone. Fill and bleed the cooling system. We have a special funnel set up to help us do that. You could do this with a regular funnel. This makes it a little bit easier. It's also easier for you to see it. Fill it with coolant. Let the air bubble out. You can top the radiator off with the correct coolant. Then we'll turn the heat on, start the car, let it idle to come up to temperature, and bleed out any air out of the cooling system. Now that it's bled, we can take the funnel off. Carefully remove our adapter here. Place our radiator cap. Dispose of the extra coolant properly.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.